your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome into another edition of your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. It's the Locked On Eagles podcast, as always, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Welcome in, guys, to episode 3 this week of 5, downloaded into your show, into your podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. We're available on all platforms and on YouTube now, Monday through Friday. It's episode 3, a Wednesday edition of the show. Louis DiBiase alongside Gino Camilleri. And Gino, today we're going to talk about players on the bubble, as this is the traditional week that is the preseason finale against the New York Jets. And it's an important one for a lot of guys that are going to make or break maybe their NFL career with this game, not only for the Eagles, but just putting tape out there for all the other 31 teams to potentially pick up.
Yeah, this week, especially for, like you said, bubble guys, everybody says that, oh, it's boring, it's not worth your time. No, these guys are playing for jobs, man. I mean, right. Especially since I've gotten into scouting, I appreciate like what these guys put in, man. Like you talk about a guy like Blake Countess, for example. I mean, he's been cut and signed how many times? Just think of the logistical battle that is for a guy like that to go home, not know what's going on, and then get a call, gets cut, goes back home, gets back onto the roster. I mean, I don't know who wants to live in a type of environment like that. But these guys do it for they do it for the love of the game, and I appreciate football for what it is, and I can't wait for this week. And we have seen some guys in this last week here against the Jets make their way onto the roster with this last game, especially when they're going to push these bubble guys to their limits. And then if they don't find out who they want on the roster, they're going to look to that 53-man cutdown and say, okay, let's go out and kind of see where some of these teams have a little bit of a luxury where we don't. We'll go out there, see where they cut down, see where we can improve. And hey, that fills your spots for you. And I posted my prediction at the depth chart today. I went in there and got fancy with Excel for the first time in quite some time. Used to do that every day of my life. I'm overdoing that. But now with the depth chart being mandatory to be at 53 guys in 6 days, Lou, there's going to be transactions galore in the next week. So you better keep your eyes peeled, because there are good players that are going to slip through the cracks in waivers. And also people forget that on the practice squad, you could keep 2 veterans who have unlimited amount of playing time in the NFL. So that's 2 more hidden roster spots that you can look to improve this team.
Right. Absolutely, Gino. There's a lot of players this week that are trying to avoid that famous knock on the door, coach wants to see you, bring your playbook.
Yeah, the Grim Reaper
type of conversation, right? Yep. I would hate to have that job to be the Grim Reaper, but again, you got to be built different as a player and also as a coach, Gino, because there's a lot of tough conversations that a guy like Nick Sirianni has to have. I mean, you are crushing dreams. Like you said, these guys are willing to be, like Josh Johnson's a perfect example in the NFL, the guy that just loves football so much, he will get signed and cut over and over again for years with no stability and still stay in it. Again, you really have to be built different in the NFL. So those guys are trying to avoid that this week with the Eagles preseason finale against the New York Jets. And then, Gino, it's time for the regular season. And with the regular season coming up, it's about to begin, and nobody covers it like the Locked On Podcast Network. August 30th, in 5 days through September 8th, Locked On's Ultimate Season Preview will debut, taking you through the NFL season. Follow the Ultimate Season Preview 2021 feed on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. It's going to feature Odyssey's Ross Tucker and Jason Lockenfora and all our Locked On personalities, including Mr. Gino Camilleri, who's going to be running the Locked On Eagles part of the NFC East crossover. So, guys, be sure to check that out starting up next week, man. It is ready to go. The season is, 2 weeks away at this point? Yeah, 2 weeks from Sunday. I can't believe it's that close.
College football in 3 days, Lou.
Yeah,
we're right in the thick of things now.
I'm going to be watching a lot of Liberty with Malik Willis.
Yes, Liberty University, also as a kid who went to my high school as the running back as well. So there are going to be a lot of eyes on the college football world and the NFL world because, Lou, we are just a few weeks away from NFL action, man. I mean, it seems like every time I go to YouTube and I look up Locked On Eagles, the Devonta Smith reaction of you and I comes up from the draft, and that was over 4 months ago, man. I mean, 4 months ago to the day. And here we are. We get to see Devonta Smith in action. We get to see Jalen Hurts hopefully go out there and take the job. And I like that you said a couple positive things about the kid yesterday, Lou.
Oh, I did.
It's a
I
nice
talked
change
a lot
of
of good
pace.
stuff about him. Yeah, I'm sure the listeners
had another good day in
that.
practice. We can't gloss over that, dude. He threw 5 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. I think he went like 13 for 17.
Most importantly, he's wearing an arm sleeve, Gino, and that is a necessity. If
it was white, correct? The white arm sleeve.
He's got the white arm sleeve. That was the one great thing about Carson Wentz. He always did have the swag, the uniform game. Ever since Sam Bradford, I'm like, I need my quarterback to actually look like a football player and not a punter.
How did they let him go out there?
They shouldn't have allowed it. It was just look. I'm a big proponent
by the NFL every week.
I'm a big proponent of the look good, play good mentality. I play goaltender for a bar league hockey league, and I'm wearing arm sleeves under my jersey just for the confidence booster. So I love that Jalen put the arm sleeve on today.
Yeah, look good, play good. It's always something I used to do. When I took tests, I would always like put on a fancier shirt and a fancier pair of pants just to get into that mentality. No, and I like that. And I also didn't want to glance over what you said about Nick Sirianni. Hats off to him in this cut down process, having the gall to talk to every single player that they cut. Sometimes it's just the front office. That is huge respects to a young coach. That's how you gain trust in these guys, because that's how they want to be treated. They don't want to be treated like just another number. You're player 83 on the roster. You know, they want to be treated as actual human beings. And that's kind of from the Chip Kelly time. We saw the opposite of that, where you were just a number.
The emotional intelligence of a dump truck, Gino.
Yes, and I think Nick Sirianni, if you're going to knock him in any area, it cannot be emotional intelligence. He knocks that out of the park. He really has a good grasp of where this team is mentally. And I think after these 2 weeks of these inter-squad practices, Lou, they're in a good spot when it comes to confidence. I would say that when Darius Slay and Smith and Quez Watkins, these guys are going out there, Jalen Hurts had that nice little dance after he threw that touchdown pass.
That was great.
Even if people aren't looking at them to be favorites, they're going to be confident. I really do think this team has a nice rejuvenated confidence feel to them, where they can really make a little bit of magic happen with not as many ingredients as many other teams have.
100%, Gino. It is a refreshing feeling. I feel like 2018, 2019, 2020, you were trying to just squeeze the life out of that Super Bowl window.
Do you feel – I want to ask you this quick before – I didn't want to interrupt you, but I really want to ask you this. Do you feel like the pressure's off and it's like now these guys can just go play football and there aren't any storylines to worry about, and we can really sit here this season, take it in, and on Sundays we're not like clenching our fists and getting crazy. We're actually appreciating the good parts, and then we could see the guys who might not fall in line, and then we improve there. But we're going to see fun stuff from Devonta Smith, from this young group in the linebacking core. I'm excited to see them. Guys like Milton Williams up front, just the youth and the mix of veterans that they have, which I think they have a very nice blend right now. I'm excited to just sit back and enjoy this team play. Even if they don't show up on the win-loss sheet as much as we thought, they're going to be in games. They're going to make football fun again, to be honest with you. I'm really excited for it.
They finally knew when to call it quits and just say, okay, we don't have that title window. It's closed now. I feel like last year was that final stand, and then this year the organization just realized, look, and again, I would have took a different approach to it, that they wanted to just totally restart, which I understand. But so yeah, it is a refreshing feeling to know those expectations aren't there when you know the team probably can't live up to those expectations. At the same time, Gino, I do miss that pressure. I like having a team that's expected to compete for championships. And so I do want that. I crave that feeling. So I do want that pressure and those nerves back again. Of course, so we want a team that we can, place those expectations on and have a realistic feeling that they're going to meet those. And I feel like because of all the injuries and everything that happened after 2017, you kept expecting it because it was the same players, and they kept finding a way at the end to make you believe again. But honestly, you probably should have known after 2018 that team wasn't going to win another title. So I do agree with you, though. It is absolutely a refreshing feeling, and it starts again September 12th, 2 weeks away from Sunday. But Gino and I have one more preseason game to cover. So guys, coming up on this edition of Locked On Eagles in segment 2 and 3, we're going to talk about players that are fighting for potentially their NFL lives this weekend, Friday, I should say, against the New York Jets on the Philadelphia Eagles. But they're also just battling as well for a spot on the Eagles 53-man roster. They could get picked up somewhere else, but make the team that you're on currently and make it easier. Save the trip. We'll get into players on offense coming up next, and then defense in segment 3 that are fighting for a spot on that 53, potentially with this game against the Jets being the do or die situation. That's coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. And guys, today's show is sponsored by betonline.ag. It's that time of year again, football fans. All eyes are now turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the NFL season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get all the updated odds, props, and contests, including online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest and the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest. Open now at BetOnline. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus when you use the promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON. Be sure to take advantage as well of their opening day super promo. Make a bet on the Thursday season opener, September 9th, between the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 for new customers only when signing up and using the promo code NFL100. BetOnline, they're your online sportsbook experts, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. All right, Eagles fans, welcome back into this Wednesday edition of your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. It's Locked On Eagles. Gino, the Eagles preseason finale this Friday against the New York Jets. It's a tale as old as time. The Eagles love to finish the season against New York. And before we get into some offensive players that are kind of make or break for this 53-man roster, it's always funny to watch. There's a player or two each year that has that big game against the Jets. And you're like, okay, was that enough to make the roster? And some guys surprisingly get cut. Others do make it. I think back to a couple of years ago, I think 2015 was the year Tim Tebow had a really good game against the Jets. And you're like, are they going to keep him as QB3? And then at running back, ironically enough, he didn't make the roster for the Eagles, but that game might have helped save his career. Raheem Mostert, who then ended up being a starting running back and still is for the 49ers. That was a Super Bowl team 2 years ago. So again, like we said in segment 1, even if they don't make the Eagles roster with a strong showing against the Jets, it puts tape out there for 31 other teams, and it gives them a chance to keep their career going.
Until there is a full-fledged developmental league for the NFL, these 3 preseason games are as important for these back-end roster guys as any other game that they've ever played. And it might not seem a lot to you and I, but to a guy, like, let's take an example right here, Lou. Coyote Awoseka, undrafted free agent, not really the most refined player, has to put out at least a little bit of tape for teams to pique an interest in him to maybe slip his way onto a practice squad, which hopefully should be in Philadelphia. But at the end of the day, offensive line is not that deep in the NFL. So if you just make a little bit of an impact, even in the preseason, teams are willing to take a chance on you. So this game especially, Lou, when the starters are sitting once again and you have these guys run into the ground, you're really going to separate the guys that want to make this team from the guys that really haven't exceeded what they should have in camp. And it'll separate themselves in the last week here. And I really think it has. There's a clear line from the starters to the second unit and then the guys that were really on the bubble. I really think it's kind of filtered its way out the last couple
Which is
weeks.
Interesting for a team that's rebuilding. There aren't that many giant question marks, right?
Yeah, I would say not towards the bottom of the roster, but more for the top, like who's going to start at like nickel corner, who's going to be your first rotational safety, stuff like that. But when you look at the back end, it's going to be who could contribute on special teams, who has the highest ceiling at, let's say, a reserve safety position, reserve corner, reserve running back, reserve wide receiver, where you usually tend to see players 49 through 53 being in one of those few positions where they can also attribute on special teams.
I think the big question on offense for me that I'm watching against the Jets is who is going to be that 6th and final wide receiver. You could even say
finally get our answer, man. It's going to be weird. It's going to be so strange.
Because I think the locks right now obviously are Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, Quez Watkins, and Greg Ward. Those are your 4 guys that are locks. And then fighting for those 2 final spots are 3 players. Travis Fulgham, who you mentioned last week might not be safe, and I've seen other people talk about that now this week too. You were kind of the first one on that. Travis Fulgham needs a big game against the Jets. JJ Arcega-Whiteside has to do something. To me right now, the only way he makes the roster is because Howie Roseman's ego of him being a second-round pick and not wanting to call it quits on one of his draft picks. It's kind of, I think, the same reason why Andre Dillard, for some reason, still hasn't been ruled the backup left tackle. And then it's John Hightower, another one of your guys that showed some impressive things in the beginning of 2020, but then struggled down the stretch. And so between those three, they're going to have strong showings against the Jets. And there's 2 spots for 3 players. Again, I think it should be Fulgham and Hightower. I know JJ was a second-round pick, but he hasn't made any plays in the preseason. And to me, Hightower and Fulgham just offer you a lot more. Fulgham had a stretch last year that JJ hasn't even come close to. And Hightower, he can stretch the field. He even, to me, proved last year more than JJ ever has. And I liked seeing him kick return last week. So he offers that special teams ability as well. I think it should be those 2, but I don't know, Gino. I feel like one of those guys is going to get cut for JJ. That's my hunch.
See, as big of a proponent as I am of JJ, the only thing that's going to keep him on the team would be special teams ability over Travis Fulgham. Travis Fulgham has
you think between those 2, not Hightower?
I think Hightower's return ability over everything would keep him on this roster. And if you look back to 2020, out of the 3 receivers that they had taken over the stretch of the season, John Hightower was the most productive.
He was the best at separating.
Are you going to cut that after one season?
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
Again, JJ has not shown what Hightower even showed last year.
No, not at all. And it would be kind of criminal to keep him on the roster unless he explodes against the Jets. And then even so, what is he doing against a second and third unit team? So it really comes down to, do you want Fulgham's size? Do you want Hightower's speed? And then do you want your second round pick? I guess that's the question that Howie Roseman is really coming down to. But if I had to guess, and what I put out in my prediction today, I put out John Hightower and Travis Fulgham are on the roster. Yeah. Because if Devonta Smith goes down, do you have another X? Like, Quez can step up in moments. I don't think he's a 16-game X. Travis Fulgham would be that type of receiver that could go against press.
And I think Hightower has a better chance against press than JJ does as well. It's why they moved Arcega-Whiteside into the slot throughout this summer. So that's a really interesting thing to watch, is those 3 receivers battling for 2 roster spots. I agree with you. I think it should be Hightower and Fulgham, but it's Howie Roseman, and I just really don't know that to be the case. And, Gino, here's another one. It's not something that the Eagles are going to do anything crazy with, but these quarterbacks behind Jalen Hurts should be on the bubble. They should be looking to find another backup quarterback. Unfortunately, you paid Joe Flacco $4 million guaranteed, so he's not going anywhere. But those guys should have to play for their jobs against the Jets on Friday. And unfortunately, I mean, Mullins probably will have to, but Flacco is, I think, safe.
Yeah, I also predicted that they only keep Joe Flacco. And then on the practice squad, I said that they grab whatever undrafted free agent quarterback a team. Like, is Ian Book a better option at this point than Nick Mullins? Like, what world are we in that is even a consideration in my mind, that Ian Book out of Notre Dame, who stunk, could potentially be a better option than Nick Mullins? And it is the reality of how bad this backup situation is. And I tweeted when they signed Joe Flacco that it could arguably be the worst signing they've ever had. People thought I was out of bounds and completely ridiculous.
Upset on the one episode, I remember.
Am I wrong though?
No,
has he looked at anything that you're willing to put him in a position to play a meaningful game, let alone meaningful snaps?
For me, yes, because I want a top pick next year. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, competitively, we're saying we're not talking about JV football.
Okay, that's fair. You're not talking about tanking. Yeah.
Like, you could have got 4 Colt McCoys for the price of 1 Joe Flacco. I would take a Colt McCoy over Joe Flacco at this point in time.
I would have took Josh Johnson over him.
Yeah. I also wanted to bring that up about Josh Johnson. When you have time, go look at his Wikipedia page, because you can't even fit his information of football onto one screen. You have to scroll down. He's played for so many teams. That guy loves the sports.
Yeah,
he loves the sport, man.
He's the new Josh McCown. And it's a great job when you think about it. He just gets to bounce around, make some signing bonuses,
learn great,
never take any hits
from unbelievable offensive coordinators.
He's always a starter for whatever upstart football league comes in and then collapses 2 months later. I love Josh Johnson. I think he's cornered the market on backup quarterbacks. But
yeah, it's like bullpen catchers,
Absolutely. All right, Gino, we got to hit one more break. Coming up next, we're going to get into defensive players to watch coming up against the New York Jets in the Eagles preseason finale on Friday night. And guys, today's show is sponsored by the best tasting protein bar on the planet. It's Built Bar. Built Bar has 9 delicious flavors, something for everybody, from coconut to coconut almond, cherry, raspberry, mint brownie, peanut butter brownie, double chocolate, salted caramel, 9 delicious flavors, all covered in 100% chocolate. They're soft and easy to chew. Honestly, to me, they taste just like a candy bar, and I'm not even really a big protein bar guy, but I eat Built Bars all the time, and it's healthy. 17 grams of protein, only 130 calories, and only 4 grams of sugar in every bar. Today, I can get you 15% off. Head over to BuiltBar.com. Use our promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15. And again, like I said, you're going to get 15% off your first order. Make sure you go try Built Bars. Something for everybody. My go-to is the peanut butter brownie. Gino, I think you said you like the mint brownie. Is that the go-to?
Yeah, the mint, and then half of the sea salted caramel.
Yeah, you spice it up and you do the combo. I
get fancy, man. I'm a fat kid at heart. Like, I still got the gut to it, but I just love my sweets and Built Bar. I mean, it's the only thing that in my diet that's healthy.
Absolutely. And again, we can get you 15% off. BuiltBar.com, promo code LOCKED15. All right, Eagles fans, welcome back into this Wednesday edition of your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, your only daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, Locked On Eagles. Louis DiBiase alongside Gino Camilleri. Guys, again, be sure if you're only listening to this on audio, Gino and I are now on video Monday through Friday on our YouTube page. So subscribe. We appreciate everybody sending us love in the comments and subscribing already. Gino, it's been an awesome start to YouTube already in the first week and a half that we've been doing it. Perfect timing with the start of the season in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I do like YouTube that regardless if you like us or not, you can leave a comment. It's not going to hurt us. We like the instant feedback, but it seems that people, I saw one follower said it's great to see you guys finally on YouTube, and we wanted to be on there sooner, but we're here now. And we're going to give you guys.
Had to work out the kinks. There
were some technical things, We're start up here at Locked On, and we're making our way. And there's going to be unbelievable Locked On content. Everybody, all of the pages are going to be on there, and we're getting up there, Lou. We almost have 50 subscribers in less than a week, and it seems like video is the future. And I love video stuff. I want to start. We can't put in any film, but I would like to do some play breakdowns where I could draw up some plays in here. We could put that on. I got my depth chart here. We'll talk about compare, contrast once the cut down comes. There's so much more we could do here with video. So it's not exclusive to every free network where you could get the podcast. YouTube is also free where you could subscribe, like, and give us comments as well. So don't limit yourself.
It's going to be awesome on YouTube. The one thing that we can't do on our podcast feeds, we can post short videos. We're going to be doing separate video productions that aren't just our full episodes. But again, all our full episodes as well will be on our YouTube page. All right, Gino, let's wrap up this Wednesday edition of Locked On Eagles, getting into players that are fighting for a spot on the 53-man roster this Friday against the New York Jets. Segment 2 on offense, we talked a lot about the wide receivers, right? John Hightower, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, Travis Fulgham. On defense, I don't know. I mean, defense feels, at least with the starting lineup, very set. And then when it comes to depth, I don't know. It's been so bad that I don't even know who could have a good game against the Jets. And I'll be like, okay, he's a lock to make the roster.
Yeah, I really think the biggest battle I'm looking at right now is, I mean, I don't know how big you would consider it, but Michael Jacquet, Craig James is your last.
The CD depth, yeah.
Yeah, your last field corner. I would talk about maybe the last depth safety with Rodney McLeod out being out currently. Is it Andrew Adams or is it a guy like Graylin Arnold who has had a little bit of experience here? So
or Elijah Riley too.
Or Eli Riley, his special teams ability really can work his way onto the roster. And then I'm looking at the introduction of the Sam Rusher, now that they have Jannard Avery. Yeah. Do they exclusively use him in that role, or do they keep Patrick Johnson instead of subjecting him to waivers to make it to the practice squad? Do they keep a guy like Jacoby Stevens who could potentially play that role? I'm excited to see what they do in terms of their draft picks on defense. Are they going to protect these guys and put them on the practice squad, let them develop like your Teron Jacksons, your Marlon Tuapalatus, or are you going to give them snaps over a journeyman like a T.Y. McGill, for example? Would he beat out a guy like Marlon Tuapalatus? You know what I'm saying? Where do you put your assets, I would say? Are you going to protect these guys and not subject them to waivers, or do you have the practice squad plan, which they usually do, in store for these guys, and they have 12 spots to do it? I think you have maybe 5 or 6 guarantees for your practice squad, but right now, the back end of the roster, it's up for grabs between veterans, young guys. There's so many options that you have, especially on defense, where they are on paper deep. They have a lot of choices to be made.
I think it's interesting. You talked about the Sam linebacker spot and the ability of those guys. They're going to be moved around the formation, blitzing through the A and B gap, coming out on the edge like Jernard Avery and, as you said, Patrick Johnson. Will that position maybe make the Eagles rethink about how many edge rushers they keep? Like, would they keep an extra defensive tackle or two? Would they keep both Hassan Ridgeway and T.Y. McGill over a Teron Jackson? You know what I mean? Because you have that Sam.
Or look to trade Derek Barnett. Like, are you more open to doing that?
Are you more prone to do that because you have that depth and you have that third linebacker spot, the Sam spot, being different than what it normally has been with the Eagles in years past? You know what I mean? Because Jernard Avery is a former defensive end that is now moving around in that rover spot, if you will. So that's what's interesting to me. It's not like one guy versus one guy at a certain position. I think it's more so the numbers game of what positions they go heavy at and which ones they don't. And I feel like the defensive line is really interesting because that linebacker spot kind of impacts the way you think about the edge and the interior. And also, too, does the versatility of a lot of guys like Milton Williams. You can also play on the edge. He's been playing exclusively defensive end this preseason, despite being traditionally a defensive tackle. So when you combine Jernard Avery and Milton Williams, these guys on the edge, it's like, I like Teron Jackson.
It's almost like the Michael Bennett situation where you didn't have to keep two of each of those positions. You have a player that can do all of that. It's a great point because on the offensive line, I do too. The thing about him is he a guy that you kind of have too much of? I put him in the big defensive end category. I had the heavy edge, I called it, which is a 5-tech, and then like the Leo edge. So I kind of tried to visualize it on my depth chart. So I have at the heavy edge, Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett. I would put Teron Jackson in there, but do you protect him because you don't have a spot for him by just putting him on the practice squad right away? Or do you now have the optionality to trade Derek Barnett, which we had talked about, and maybe he doesn't even make it out in New York and he stays there after this weekend? That would be something that we might see. We saw a big trade today. Sony Michel traded from the New England Patriots to the Los Angeles Rams.
I wanted the Eagles to take him in 2018.
We talked about him being that pick.
I was so wrong about him.
Good thing we got Dallas Goedert.
You know what's funny?
Yes,
I agree.
Much better addition.
It's funny, man. Sony Michel and Nick Chubb coming out of Georgia. Chubb was the slow, injured running back. I thought Michel was the multi-dimensional weapon. They almost like switched. It was like Freaky Friday coming into the NFL. I would have took Michel at 32 if he was there, but that would have been clearly a mistake. So, but yeah, Gino, we're going to keep a close eye on this roster as cutdowns come, and the Eagles have one final preseason game this Friday against the New York Jets. And guys, we've got you covered tomorrow and Friday as well. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your shows. And again, on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page. And we're always on Twitter as well at DBAussieLOE, at GC24_football, and at Locked On Birds. Guys, we're talking birds 24/7. We don't stop. We're relentless, and maybe some people think insufferable at times when it comes to me and my quarterback.
I try to toss a little extra in there. Man City might be getting Cristiano Ronaldo, so I'm a little up in arms right now about that.
So you might get some soccer takes as well from Gino on Twitter. You get the best of both worlds.
I'm always talking football. GC24_football.
Or Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. That's going to do it. As always, thank you for downloading. Thank you for listening, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.